When Dean asked me to write something for Collins if he was alive today, he asked me a few weeks ago, and every time you try to do something like that, it becomes a little bit too close to indulgence. But you go, okay, perhaps we can invoke the spirit of Collins in some way. So every time I try to sit down to write something, I threw it in the bin again and again and again, 5 or 6 times. And the basic pillars of what I was trying to examine was our culture, our government, our economy, and our future, which are effectively the 4 most important aspects of our culture right now. But every time I read Collins' words, and every time I submerged myself in the world of Collins, he began to speak more and more clearly. Not through me, not some reinterpretation, none of that nonsense. His actual words. Our knowledge of Collins obviously is, his bravery is astonishing. He's massively divisive as a character. We know his capability. We know that he created guerrilla warfare and was imitated around the world. But we're less aware of his stunning writing. We're less aware of his incredible voice. So the more I read his material, the more I realized, okay, what would Collins say if he was addressing the idea of our culture, our government, our economy, and our future? And it turns out that most of the words were already there. So all I did was I addressed those 4 issues, and everything I say here is written by Michael Collins. Nothing is written by me. The only thing is that they're recontextualized within those 4 parameters. Does that make sense? Okay, also this is dedicated, the fact that we're in the GPO is astonishing. It's dedicated to the brave men and women who gave their life to fight for a better future for all of us. And it's a warning from history to those men and women who are hell-bent on destroying that future. In the ancient days of Gaelic civilization, the people were prosperous, but they were not materialists. They were one of the most spiritual and one of the most intellectual peoples in Europe. The Irish social and economic system was democratic, it was simple and harmonious. The people had security in their rights and just law, and their economic life progressed smoothly. They had leisure for the cultivation of the mind by the study of art, literature, and our traditions. Under the democratic system which was being established by the representatives of the people, the freest and most democratic system yet devised, the rights of every minority were secured, and the fullest opportunity was open for every section of opinion to express and advocate its views. The privileges and duties of the chiefs, doctors, lawyers, bards were the same throughout the country. The schools for the study of law, medicine, history, military skill belonged to the whole nation. While we were able to preserve it, no outside enemy had power against us. But our enemies learned its strength and set out to destroy it. The Gaelic soul of the Irish people still lives. It is in itself indestructible, but its qualities are besmirched by that which has been imposed upon us. Through centuries, through hopes and through disappointments, the Irish people have struggled to get rid of a foreign power which was preventing us from exercising our simple right to live and to govern ourselves, which tried to destroy our nationality, our institutions, which tried to abolish our customs and blot out our civilization. All that made us Irish, all that united us as a nation. The national character was infected and the life of the nation was endangered. It should have been the political glory of Ireland to show that our differences of opinion could express themselves so as to promote and not to destroy the national life. The country was face to face with disaster and economic ruin. We made advances over and over again to the politicians, met by a reckless and wrecking opposition, and yet unwilling to use force against our own countrymen, we made attempt after attempt at conciliation. Those honourable efforts were defeated by the politicians. The first duty of government is to maintain public order, security of life, personal liberty and property. The policy of divide and rule and the opportunity it gives for private economic oppression brought nothing but evil and hardship to the whole of Ireland. They openly defied the will of the people. Blind to facts and false to ideals, it was against the Irish people themselves that they directed their operations. Freedom should have come long ago. Prosperity would have come with it. Ireland would have taken her rightful place in the world, the place due to her by her natural advantages, the place due to her by the unique character of her people. But she has lost economically and spiritually. They robbed and destroyed, not merely for the sake of loot and from a criminal instinct to destroy, but on a plan and for a definite purpose, namely the persecution and terrorism of the unarmed population and the attempt by economic destruction, famine and violence to make an appropriate hell in Ireland. Their ways are not our ways. Their interests and their purposes meant our destruction. The wrong done was not merely to the material prospects of the nation, but to its soul. They had deprived us of life and liberty. Economic studies showed us that the poverty which afflicted us came from the presence of the enemy, and their control over us had come from landlordism. The anti-national character of their campaign became clear when we saw them pursuing exactly the same course as the English black and tans. A tree is known by its fruit. We have seen these fruits, and these fruits are deadly. Worst of all, their action has been a crime against the nation. It is proving that our enemies were right, that we are incapable of self-government. When left to ourselves in freedom, we could show nothing of the native civilization we had claimed as our own. The black and tans, with all their foreign brutality, were unable to make of Ireland an appropriate hell. The greatest evil would have been not that the enemies would come back, that would indeed have been terrible enough, but that they would have been welcomed back. That they would have come not as enemies, but as the protectors who could bring order. Our external life has become the expression of all we have been deprived of, something shapeless and ugly. What we have before us is the great work of building our nation. We must have a political, economic and social system in accordance with our national character. It must be a system in which our material, intellectual and spiritual needs and tastes will find expression and satisfaction. Economically, we must be democratic. The right of all the people must be secure. The people must become again the guardians of their law and of their land. Monopoly must not be allowed to deprive anybody of that right. Neither through the existence of monopoly must capital be allowed to become evil. Our government must be democratic in more than name. We must not have state departments headed by a politician whose only qualification is that he or she has climbed to a certain rung on the political ladder. Our national education must provide a balance of the competing elements, the real education of the faculties, and storing the mind with the best thoughts of the great men and women of our own and other nations. Our music and our art and literature must be in the lives of the people themselves, not the luxury of the few. Our civilization will be glorious or the reverse, according to the character of the people, and the work we produce will be the expression of what we are. Each Irish interest, each phase of Irish life, industrial, commercial, cultural, social, must find expression and have a voice in the development of the country, partly by the government and partly by cooperation and individual effort, assisting to restore and maintain peace and public order, rights of life and property, according to law, freedom for all individuals, parties and creeds to express themselves. The use of wealth are to provide good health, comfort, moderate luxury, and to give the freedom which comes from the possession of these things. The object is not to be the boast of enormous wealth or of a great volume of trade for their own sake. It is not to show a great national balance sheet, not to point to a people producing wealth with the self-obliteration of a hive of bees. The real riches of the Irish nation will be the men and women of the Irish nation, the extent to which they are rich in body and mind and character. In our national economy is put on a sound footing, it will be possible for our people to provide themselves with the ordinary requirements of a decent living. It will be possible for each to have sufficient food, a good home in which to live in fair comfort and contentment. Ireland must provide opportunities for the investment of Irish capital. If not, investors and exploiters from outside will come in to reap the rich profits which are to be made. And what is worse still, they will bring with them all the evils that we wanted to avoid. To ease the immediate situation, a grant must enable a considerable number of houses to be built. This grant, although seemingly large, is simply a recognition of the existence of the problem. We hope to see in Ireland industrial conciliation and arbitration taking the place of strikes, and the workers sharing in the ownership and management of business. If we all work together in a mutually helpful spirit, recognizing that we all seek the same end, the good of Ireland, our difficulties will disappear. The Irish nation is the whole people of every class, creed, and outlook. We recognize no distinction. It will be our aim to weld all our people nationally together who have hitherto been divided in political and social and economic outlook. The freedom, strength, and greatness of the nation will be measured by the independence, economic well-being, physical strength, and intellectual greatness of the people. We have a rich and fertile country, a sturdy and intelligent people. Ireland is an ancient nation which from earliest times had a distinct civilization. Strangers who came were absorbed, and the national ways were not interfered with, and were such by their attractiveness as to enable strangers to become Irish easily and thoroughly. A new page of Irish history is beginning. If we wish to make our nation a free and a great and a good nation, we can do so now. Whatever the name or the political phraseology, we cannot restore Ireland without a great united effort. Ireland is one, perhaps the only, country in Europe which has now living hopes for a better civilization. We have a great opportunity. Much is within our grasps. We shall be able to give our children bodily and mental health, and our people shall be able to secure themselves against the inevitable times of sickness and old age. That must be our object. What we must aim at is the building up of a sound economic life in which great discrepancies cannot occur. We must not have the destitution of poverty at one end, and at the other, an excess of riches in the possession of a few individuals. We forgot our freedom, we forgot our language, we forgot our own native Irish ways, we forgot our love and veneration for things of the mind and character, our pride in learning, in the arts, for which we had been famous. The outward sign of a rise in the social scale became the extent to which we cast off everything which distinguished us as Irish, and the success with which we imitated the enemy who despised us. And slavery still exists. From east to west, from north to south, we are soaked, saturated, and stupefied. We became the degraded and feeble imitators of our tyrants. Irish civilization was to be completely blotted out. Our lands were to be confiscated and given to aliens. Our industries were to be effectively destroyed. Everything that tended to remind us of the past, everything that tended to retain our Irish outlook, everything that helped us to keep as a distinctive people, everything that tended to keep us alive in our memories of our Gaelic civilization and of our Irish nationality, freedom and prosperity was to be obliterated. By means of wholesale commandeering, the land was taken from the people, and the feudal system of tenure, a system for the purpose of enslavement, was imposed. The free men and women of Ireland, whose rights have been rooted in the soil, became the tenants, the serfs of the usurpers, and were completely at the mercy of their new masters, the landlords, who joined with the enemy in the policy of robbing, exploiting, and exterminating the Irish people. In our generation, we no longer have to shoot landlords, for landlords as they were known have mostly gone. In the same way, we hope that the next generation will have no necessity to shoot an enemy, for the enemy will have gone. Our national freedom depends on the extent to which we reverse the history of the last 800 years, the extent to which we get rid of the enemy and get rid of the control over our material and spiritual life. We must turn back again the wheels of that infamous machine which is destroying us. Our civilization will only be indestructible by being enthroned in the lives of the people and having its foundation resting on right, honesty, and justice. Our strength as a nation will depend upon our economic freedom and upon our moral and intellectual force. Let us advance and use these liberties to make Ireland a shining light in a dark world, to reconstruct our ancient civilization on modern lines, to avoid the errors, the miseries, the dangers into which other nations with their false civilizations have fallen. It is a measure of freedom which we can make an actual living Ireland when left to ourselves. Can we not all join together to save the Irish ideal, freedom and unity, and to make it a reality? Those who are left in possession of the battlefield have won. Give us the future. We've had enough of your past. Give us back our country to live in, to grow in, to love. Michael Collins.
Old man whispered in my ear the saddest thing he knew. When Ireland's proudest son was shot at the age of 32. He held my hand, his eyes held tears, my eyes filled up too, with a powerful emotion for a man I never knew. Michael Collins, fearless son, you touched the nation's soul. 10,000 pounds upon your head, you still achieved your goal. 'Twas not behind the barricades you fought the wanton fight. You beat the enemy at their gates, you undermined their might. In the crowded banquet hall, the old man, meek and mild, a simple man from off the land, with the blue eyes of a child, brought a memory that an Irish gun shot down the rebel sun, and Ireland lost her laughing boy before his work was done. Michael Collins, fearless son, you touched the nation's soul. 10,000 pounds upon your head, you still achieved your goal. You knew the orange and the green would keep us yet apart, but the dream of Ireland won and free was the dream that filled your heart. An old man in a banquet hall, some 50 years gone by, held a sadness that would never pass, in his blue eyes still to cry, with the memory that an Irish gun shot down her favourite son, and Ireland lost her laughing boy before his work was done. Michael Collins, feel the sun, you touch the nation's soul. 10,000 pounds upon your head, you still achieved your goal. Start behind the barricade, you fought the wanton fight. You beat the enemy at their game to undermine their might. You beat the enemy at their game, you undermine